I don't even know what to say. I mean, this is like, I'm going to frame these days. I'm going to put it on the wall.
I know. I don't know what to say either, because this is a long time coming. I wish we were in person, because I would love to like just squeeze you, and it feels so good to be in touch again. Really, it does.
Thank you so much for being on board the Transatlantic. We
Yes.
believe that each of us is an ocean of erratic thoughts and wild feeling. I mean, your ocean must be like over beautiful. So I would say, let's get through it. I'm going to ask you 7 questions, like the 7 C's, and
Okay.
hopefully we can give a side of you to the audience that maybe don't know, like, but let's see. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
First question. The oceans are fundamental in the support of human life. Now, not sure like many have thought about this detail, but if you spell the word life, there is if that into it. Is right in the middle. So life comes with if. And I take this as a sign, as a lesson, as a warning. Whenever we stop asking ourselves if, our imagination takes a blow and we stop taking risk. Now, when I look at your career, I see if disseminated everywhere, everywhere. You master the risk. You break the ceiling. So my question for you today is, what is your next if? What's the next ceiling you're going to break?
Ooh, I just love that so much. It's such a philosophical question, and one that I don't think I paid attention to that before, so thank you for bringing that to light, because I didn't consider that. But you're right that, life is one big pondering, isn't it? It's like, if I do this, if I do that, what happens if, there's so many questions in it. And I think we spend so much of our time trying to answer the question, trying to answer what comes next, or if I had done this thing. It's like, it's a both looking backwards and looking forward all the time. And we're rarely in the moment.
Right.
We're rarely present. And I think that's such an inhibitor to our actual progress and how we enjoy life. And as you know, there's been lots of ups and downs in my life. In my career, it has certainly been very, what I would call turbulent. I think other people look at it and they're like, oh, this looks like a nice path. You went from here, then you went here, then you went here. And it looks like it's like some big plan. But that hasn't been the case for me. Life has been very much, I feel like, turbulent, in terms of like what I want to do and how I do it. And so I'm constantly asking myself that question, what if? And it is why when people ask me if I have like a 5-year plan, I look at them confused, because I don't have one. I really don't. I've never had a plan. I'm trying to live, and that is what brings me back to the present, that we think so much about, what we did and if we could have done something differently, or we think about the future and we say, oh, what if this happens next? We rarely think about like this very moment in time. And I am in the pursuit of living my life today, making sure that like everything that I'm doing is exciting, it is fulfilling, satisfying, that I find joy in it, that I find excitement in it. Obviously, I'm not afraid of fear. I'm not afraid of like the sadness or the other things that happen in life that make you feel uncomfortable or scared. I think those are all very healthy too. So I want to explore all of those in that moment. I mean, even like sitting right here with you right now, I'm in this moment. I'm not thinking about what meeting I have next, or like, what I said yesterday. Like I want to enjoy you right now in this very moment. And so for me, I'm constantly thinking about that. Like if I make this moment the best moment that I can make it, then the collection of them over the span of my life will be beautiful. And so that is how I consider it all the time.
Thanks for your answer. I mean, it's a reminder to myself also, like, to enjoy the moment. For me, it's been always very hard to get into the moment. Like, I remember like the very first time I bumped into the quotes like carpe diem, squeeze the day. I was like very young, it's a quote, I study Latin, but I could never really understand the quotes. Like I could never really grasp, because present is such a like a bastard trick as a tent. You know what I mean? It's like it tricks you, and like he always like gets you to think about the future. So I'm so happy about this answer, and like and I feel so honored that you actually like, you know, try to squeeze the present to enjoy these moments, because it's awesome, man. Thank you. Second question. There's not just a single answer to the question, where do oceans come from? Apparently is a very common question, but one of the possible answers give me chills whenever I think about it. And it goes like this: they come from icy comets that struck the young Earth. That's one of the possible answers. That's where the ocean come from. Now, I'm sure there is not just one answer to the question, where your badass come from, right? Because that's a gene. That's really like a DNA of both, right? But whenever I think about the attitudes, the lifestyle, the approach that you have, I think about icy comets stalking the young Earth. So it's the power of inspiration. So I want to hear it from you. If I were to ask you, where does your badass come from? What would be the answer?
Woo. Woo. That, you know, the thought of the icy comet gives me chills too.
Is it right?
It's just like, because think about I mean, you think about it all the time, clearly. It's like the vastness of the ocean is so mysterious, you know, and the fact that we haven't even gone to all of the depths, you know, because we're not able to, you know, as human beings, that we haven't figured out the technology to get us down there. It's so incredible to me, you know? And so when I think about, gosh, the creation of things and why they exist and how they came to be, yeah, I guess if you turn the light to yourself and try to figure out, well, like, where did this attitude come from? You know, what was the comet that hit the young Earth, you know, to make this moment? And so I think about that, and you're right. I think it does start from youth, you know, that like, I think of the young Earth and I think of the young Boz, you know, and at what point did that comet hit? And I can think of a few, what I would call like inflection points, a few comet moments, you know, that struck me in a way that changed the course of my life forever. You know, my parents are originally from Ghana in West Africa. And my dad was very much, you know, very committed to, like most of our parents, very committed to making sure that I had the best, you know, best education, best opportunities, you know, situations that he didn't have growing up. And so was my mother. You know, both of them were very committed to making sure that we were going to be set up for life. The challenge, of course, is that, you know, you're Black and you live in a world that doesn't always appreciate Blackness, you know, regardless of how incredible you feel. And we had the privilege and sometimes the challenge of moving around a lot, you know, when I was a kid. And so one of the big inflection points for me, or the comet that hit young Boz and made me the badass that I am, is when I was 12. You know, that we moved from Ghana to the US and moved to Colorado Springs, Colorado when I was 12. And at that time in life, I mean, like, you remember when you were 12, you know, right? Exactly. We have kids that are almost 12, and you know what that's like. You're awkward. It's a little weird. You don't really know what is what, you know, your body is changing, and you just, you know, you don't feel confident, you know? And so at 12, I moved to Colorado Springs, and no one looked like me there, right? You know, I was tall and thin and Black, and it was just not the same as the blonde, you know, petite girls that were running around there. And I think in that moment, you know, the destruction that could have been my life was really saved by my mother. You know, she was the one who, when kids would come to our house, you know, for a play date or, you know, after school, she would refuse to speak to them in English. You know, she was like, they're in our house, they're going to speak our language.
That's awesome.
You know, when we wanted to order pizza, she would say no. You go to their house, you eat pizza, you eat hamburgers, you eat hot dogs, you eat potato chips. When they're in our house, they will eat our food. You know, and we're going to eat with our hands. you know, and she would make them eat the hot pepper soup and the fried plantain and the boiled yams, and they'd be standing there, you know, like picking up the food, like, what's this? You know, like, eat it. You know what I mean? And I think about that comment, because that is a impactful moment, right? It's uncomfortable, it's painful, because I was sitting there at 12 thinking, I don't want to be different from these kids. You know, I just want everything to be the same. I want to be blonde, and I want to eat pizza, and I want to speak English, and I don't want anything to be different. And she was like, no, you know, you are different, and you're going to appreciate it, and you're going to force them to appreciate what you have. And it's such an incredible thing, because I think, as you know, as immigrant people, you always want to assimilate into the culture, right? Because it is the easiest thing to do. We all know that. It's like, people will look at you, they'll hear your accent, they'll hear you speak a different language, they'll hear you, you know, see you eat different food, and then they want to point at you and say, oh, well, you're different. You're not one of us, right? And so what happens is that we always want to assimilate and then be the same. And what she did, which is miraculous to me, I can't, even as a parent today, I cannot fathom how she did it, because I think if I were in her shoes, I would want to make it easier for my kids, right? And she refused. She was like, no, you are going to appreciate what you have. I don't care if these kids can't understand the words that we're saying, because we're in our house. They're going to hear us speak our language. And she was absolutely committed to that. And it is, when I think of my own development, and the reason I am the way that I am, and the fact that I don't bow to anybody. I don't walk into rooms and feel the need to be like anybody else. I'm like, I walk into the room and I expect you to appreciate who I am. I expect you to, like, you know, see me and appreciate the fact that I am super Black and that I'm African and that I eat certain foods and that I listen to certain music. I don't feel the need to be anything else. And so that's why it's like, you know, even being in a chief seat in a big company, I still show up to work with my big gold hoops, you know what I mean? And my red lipstick. And yes, every other person at the table doesn't look like me, but I still feel very confident in that, because of that comment at 12 with young Boz that told me that I had something that should not be assimilated, that it was worthy and significant, and I should celebrate it.
I love the marking line at the 12, because, you know, there is the saying that goes like, everything important in our life happened in our youth. Everything else, it doesn't really matter. Like, you know, is what was built during our youth. And I commend your mom. I met her once, long time ago, and it's like such a strong woman. Like, you had to be so brave to truly see your kid going through a tough time and sticking to your guns and say, no, you're gonna be different. But, you know, I mean, later in life, there was this quote from Oscar Wilde that say, you better be yourself, because guess what? Everybody else is taken.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, so
it's true. That's a very good point. Everyone else is taken. You might as well
be yourself. Anyway, good. Look, fair question. In the deepest part of the ocean, different currents clash, entwine, and separate. Now, this constant tension reminds me of one verse of Amanda Gorman. Now, everybody knows Amanda Gorman right now, but I was a follower of like her poems, like even before the speech. And there was one poem that she wrote where one verse say, all that I am, woven besides all I am not. And I found this extremely insightful. The power of this verse is that it perfectly describes what happened at the bottom of our personal oceans. Now, you are a celebrity, you are very visible, and everybody knows you're outside, all that you are. But tell me one thing that all that you are not.
Ooh, gosh, it's such a deep question. It's so deep. You're right. I think, you know, living a public life, which I never intended, to live a public life. I feel like I kind of fell into it, and now I can't get out. Yeah, it's interesting to me because I think people often see me, and I do share a lot, right, publicly, and they see it and they think they must know everything because they have seen me, right? They've seen me with my kid. They've seen me talk about, you know, my late husband, Peter. They've seen me at work. They've seen me accept awards. They've seen me, you know, watch TV. They've seen me twerk at a club. Like, you know, they've seen all the things. And so I think you're right that perhaps in the greater world and in like sort of the outside, people probably feel like they know a lot of who I am, you know? But what they don't know, you know, on the inside, is very much that I am a loner, you know, at heart. Like I very much am intuitive and insular. You know, my alone time is where I mostly thrive. You know, that it actually makes me very uncomfortable to be in spaces with a lot of people. And it is probably contradictory, you know, to my very public life, because I think people would see me and think I'm a people person, and you know, because I can do that. I can walk into a room and turn on and, you know, do the thing. But I don't enjoy it as much as I enjoy my aloneness. You know,
That's such a beautiful answer. You
yeah.
know, would have never expect that. You know, then it's like that's a great answer. It's like I love the contrast because it's really like you like feeding from your like being like, you know, loneliness. It's like your silence, your quietness
Yeah.
plays so much in contrast with your like public life. But that's the perfectly explanation of Amanda Gorman verse.
Yes,
So
yes, yes. It sits right beside, you know, because it is at the same time that I'm a public figure and I have to put on, and there are a lot of people who think that, you know, we're best friends because
right.
I am able to engage. It sits right beside my real need and depth of like aloneness, you know, that I am much more comfortable in a quiet room by myself, like without any distraction. I don't need a TV. I don't need music. I can just be alone with my thoughts. And that for me is my most peaceful place. It is a place
that's one trait of being like very strong, because one of the most terrifying things nowadays, like our lives are so exposed, like, you know, to everything, is actually being with yourself. It's terrifying, like, you know, that's why when you walk into an elevator, the first and oh, you're waiting for someone, the first things you grab your phone, and it's like you have to do something, right? Because just to be with yourself, stand still, is a hell of a challenge.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. But I really enjoy it. You know, I just, and I think that's you know, some of it I think is learned behavior, and probably some of it I was born with, but it's also learned behavior. You know, even just going back to this thought, like I was sharing about being 12 or like moving around a lot and having to be the new kid all the time, and you know, telling people how to pronounce my name again. You know, it's like all of that it felt like work.
right.
You know, it felt very much like something I had to do. And so when I didn't have to do that and I would just go off by myself, it was more comforting. You know, even like thinking now about those days, you know what it's like when you're a kid and you're at a new school, and you have to, you know, go to lunch and you have to figure out who you're going to sit with. You know, I think I would have been perfectly fine sitting by myself if it weren't for the fact that I knew if I sat by myself, people would look at me and think I was strange.
Right.
And that's what made me want to sit with other people. It wasn't that I needed the other people. I just didn't want anyone to think I was strange. But I would have been okay with that. I would have been totally okay sitting and having
It's a great trait to be okay with your loneliness. It's a great trait, and I love it.
Yeah.
And that's why you're strong. That's why you're strong. Anyway, you're gonna like this question. Here's a question for you. In 2019, Antigua Island Girls became the world's first all-black team to voluntarily row across the Atlantic Ocean. all made of girls.
Hmm.
The Iceland girls rode more than 3,000 miles in 47 days.
Woo.
Upon reaching their final destination, they celebrate. Now, the beauty of these achievements is that they crossed an ocean and they gave each other a shot at greatness, to be great. They help each other. Now, somehow I do believe that your career path was designed to be like a movie, and there was someone that gave you a shot at greatness. Now, this person I read in your biography, and I know it could be like Spike Lee. That's where you start, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, my question is like, you're watching your own movie unfolding, and here's the scene. There is a young girl walking into Spike Lee agency.
Ooh.
You are doing the commentary. What would you say?
Oh gosh. Such a great question. This is like the best interview I've ever had. This is incredible. Ooh, the commentary. Okay, okay. So let's set it up. Okay, so it's daytime, right? Morning, early morning. It's very quiet, right, in the office because no one is there. She has come early to the meeting or to the appointment on her first day. The commentary that is going on is her palms are a little sweaty. Her heart is racing a little fast, more than normal. She's trying to keep her breathing steady so that it doesn't appear like she's nervous. But inside, she's a jumble. She has practiced what she's going to say and how she's going to say it. She's done it a million times in the mirror, but somehow she feels like she'll still get it wrong. She walks in trepidatious, still nervous, but knowing that she has to walk boldly because appearance is everything and the first impression is the only impression. So she holds her head up high, walks in boldly, sticks out her hand for a handshake, and is immediately met with the stare of a man who can see through her and see everything that she is trying to hide. And he says, "Oh no, it can't be Miss America."
Dude, you should, I wish I had the footage of that scene of the young girl because that is a hell of a commentary, man.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. And I love the part. I love the part where you rehearse in front of a mirror.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The role. She knows the
role. A million times. I said, and I tried it in different ways. You know, "Hi, Mr. Lee. How are you doing today?" "Hello, Mr. Lee. I'm so happy to be here." "Mr. Lee, it's a pleasure. I'm so honored to be here." "Hi! Oh my goodness, this is so exciting." Oh, I tried it a million ways.
That's acting. That's like a beautiful act. That's why, you know, it's funny because like one of my lessons, recent lesson that I did to the MBA students at Loyola Marymount University, it was actually method acting in the creative field. And how to tap into your, like, you know, memory experience and bring it into like the creative process. And so somehow I do think that's like you rehearse in front of a mirror or trying to give different take of like the welcoming line is literally like, you know, tapping into like what you are and bring it into like, you know, a creative approach. So yeah, that's awesome. Okay, here's another question. In storm winds, you want to set 2 anchors, right? When you have a boat, there is a storm and you want to set 2 anchors. The heaviest anchor has to go directly down. And then like, if you face many storms in life, you know that you need 2 anchors. Now, your life, you say, has been tumultuous at the very least, up and down. What are the 2 anchors? The heaviest one and the light one that you use whenever there is a storm? I might know the answer because you already gave me one heaviest anchor, which is your mom.
Yeah.
The other one.
Gosh, it's such a deep question also. You know, I think I might answer it a little bit differently. in that I don't know if my anchors are people,
Oh, okay.
but rather experiences.
That's interesting.
You know, that the heaviest anchor, and this is one that, you know, will be near and dear to you as well, is when Peter died. You know, I think the moment, of course, looking at it now, there's, you know, I mean, they're not really words to describe it, right? Because his illness was so quick, and it felt like we didn't have any time, you know, to figure out all of the things. You know, it's like, and, you know, marriage is not easy, right? We had been married 10 years, and there had been a lot of ups and downs, happiness and sadness, and laughter and anger, and all of the things. And I think that we always think we have time. You know, we think we have time to figure it out. And the anchor that I learned, and which I use now, is that often there is not time. You know, that life is such a precious thing. And that anchored me because I could understand that I have to live it. You know, that I can't wait. You know, there aren't the plans for, you know, oh, when I retire, I'll do this thing. Or like when I, you know, figure out, you know, how to do this other thing, and I'll do that. You know, it's like that anchoring for me is in understanding the weight of time.
That's awesome.
That it is such a heavy thing, and I have to be able to be secure in it, and knowing that, like, okay, I got to keep going. You know, I got to keep moving. I've got to make something happen. And that anchors me in my life, because regardless of where I am, regardless of the storm, I can always come back to that as a way to just to hold me down. You know, that like I understand the preciousness of this life, and that I have to keep achieving. And if I want to have the kind of satisfaction and joy that I want in my life, I've got to keep it moving. So for me, that is one anchor. And the other one is also a feeling and out of an experience, which is, you know, my love of love. You know, I love love. Love, it's just such a beautiful thing. You know, the sort of like the effervescence of it, you know, the headiness of it. You know, when you first fall in love and everything seems so wonderful, like everything is sunshine.
Life goes like Photoshop, like,
It's
you know,
so
colored.
it's so wonderful, all of that, you know. And I want to find that in every experience.
It's beautiful.
You know, in like in my work, obviously I want to find it in love and in a person too, in my daughter, in cooking, in clothes. You know, it's like all of those experiences. So it's like the combination of those two anchors are what I think keep me steady. You know, the heaviness of like understanding death and understanding the limited time that we're here is sort of balanced by my intense love of love and the feeling of effervescence that it gives you. You know, the levity. It makes you feel like, I can do anything. You know,
such a great answer. Such a great answer. You know, I met Peter in 2006, and I wish to this day that he knew a different version of me. I remember like when I came to America, like, you know, my English was like not that good. And I remember like, you know this, I used to call him Big Boy, right? Yeah. Because he had this giant hand. Every time he would pat on my shoulder and say, man, you gotta be better, man. Like, you know, you gotta like, because he always thought I was a mess. And but it's wonderful memories. Like my memories, like, you know, I remember like a lunch with him at Bryant Park, and we talked about it. And he was super happy when actually I had my first girl. He was extremely happy for me, because it's like, finally you sit down, man. It's like, you know, but it's for me, it was always like Big Boy, you know. It's like once I remember he told me like, let's go work out together. I was like, dude, what do you want to work out together? You fucking like 3 times of me. Like, anyway, though. Anyway,
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Anyway, so this question: Okay, I almost see the shore. Okay, good. During my first transatlantic move in 2006, when I came to America, one of the things that I did, I shipped all my book to Italy because I wanted to start completely fresh. But even from the language, because I'm a writer by trade, so I wanted to truly craft my English. But I bought a few books in America, and among them there was like a collection of poems from Tupac Shakur.
Yes.
And two of my favorite poems from Tupac, from this collection of poems, were like Liberty Needs Glasses. It was one of them. And the other one, of course, was the rose that grow from concrete.
Yes. Yes.
Now, the first line of the rose that grow from concrete goes like this. Did you hear about the rose that grew from the crack in the concrete? Proving nature's law is wrong. It learned to walk without having feet. What would you say to all those roses that grew from concrete because of you? And I know that there are so many out there. What would you say to them?
Wow, it's so beautiful. Like that line is beautiful. Incredible. I mean, I love Tupac Shakur.
Wow.
I love Tupac. I mean, as an artist and as a writer, I can't believe that he was able to express all that he was able to express in the short time that he was on Earth. You know, it's incredible. By the way, as an aside, when I was in college, I actually taught a class on Tupac's lyrics.
Oh, you really?
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because for me, I look at him as a poet.
Yes,
as a writer first, and then a performer.
That's right.
For me, it was truly like a poet, so it's the same way, equally for me, when I think of Jim Morrison, I don't think about Jim Morrison as a singer, I think of Jim Morrison as a writer. And then it happened to perform. And so Tupac was exactly the same.
Exactly
to me.
Yes, completely. Yeah, because the class that I taught was about his lyrics as poetry. That's actually the name of the class. Lyrics as poetry that reflect the life and times. You know, it's like, it's just such a beautiful thing. And a rose that grew from the concrete is such a beautiful way to look at those of us who have had experiences that, you weren't expected to have. You know, that like, who would expect a rose to pop out through the crack? You know, it's so unlikely. It's so impossible, to see it. And I always think about that, for me and living my life, the way that I live it, that certainly the expectations, the statistics aren't in my favor, for the kind of life that I live as a Black woman in corporate America, as a single mom of a 11-year-old girl. The statistics just aren't in my favor, and so I do see myself as a rose that's growing through the cracks, that somehow I found my way, and it's like, oh, here I am, kind of like the flowers in the wallpaper behind me. I feel very much that spirit. And so when I think of other people who look at my experience or who look at my life and are inspired or who think that they can do it because I'm doing it, it humbles me. I think it's so incredible to think that there are other people who are having similar experiences to me. By the way, they don't need to be women. They don't need to be Black. They don't need to have come from Africa. They don't need to be single parents. Like, they don't need any of those things. But if anything in my life is showing them that even when you have an impossible circumstance, even when every stat on the planet would tell you that this person won't succeed, and you're able to do that you're able to find the ways, even with very little resources. Because when you think about the rose, right, it didn't have soil, or like, a vast like garden. It didn't have a gardener pruning the thorns or talking to it or misting it with a little water on its petals to make it look nicer. It didn't have any of those things. It was like by sheer will and determination, it made it. And I think that for us is the lesson, that like sometimes we're always looking for somebody to prune us and talk to us nicely you know, and hopefully we're in an environment which will allow us to just sprout out and be the most beautiful person we can be. And sometimes that's not the case, but doesn't mean that you can't. You know, that by sheer will, like if you really want it, you know, and you might be the only rose, and that is okay too. And sometimes I do feel like the single lonely rose in a vast concrete.
The sheer willingness is a great trait. It reminds me, remember the movie with like the movie called like The Pursuit of Happiness, which is the director is like, you know, it was an Italian director, Gabriele Muccino, and there is a line that Will Smith say, don't let anybody tell you what you're gonna become. If you want something, go and get it. If you want something, go and get it. And I remember it stuck with me, like, you know. And when people ask me, like, how did you come to America? You know, I was born in a small village near, like, Rome. It's, like, literally, like, no connection to anything. And I was like, you know, I want it. I want it so bad that I just, like, came and grabbed it for myself, you know? So it's a good trait.
That's what I'm saying. Sheer will and determination.
Absolutely.
You didn't have the setup. You know, it's, I'll tell you a really quick story because, you know, my father, as I've said, is one of my inspirations. And if I think my statistics are bad, his were worse, you know? Like you
was the underdog.
Oh, complete underdog. First of all, he was an orphan by the time he was 14. You know, his mother died when he was 2. He didn't know her, didn't you know, remember her. His father was pretty distant, you know, and then died when he was 14, and there was no one to support him, you know, so he had to go to work, you know, had to drop out of school and go to work to try and feed himself and take care of himself. And he was in a little village on like the west coast of Ghana. I mean, it's like an impossible place where, you know, people don't escape from that. You know, you live and then you die young, you know, that's the life that people live there. And through sheer will and some dreaming, you know, because I think that also requires for the magic to happen is that you are able to think about something that is bigger than yourself, you know, and want it so much that it actually ends up happening, like you manifest it, you know, based on that thought of the greatness that you can achieve combined with this sheer will. And through that, he joined the Navy, lied, by the way, and said he was older than he was. He joined the Navy. He found out that he has a natural talent for music. He's a self-taught musician, plays the wind instruments. So he plays the clarinet, the flute, the trumpet. I mean, he plays all kinds of wind instruments and taught himself and was so good at it that he became the first chair for the Navy band. And then, because, you know, sometimes destiny meets us when we're ready, he was sitting performing for a delegation that had come from America at the president's, you know, dinner where he was playing the music. And one of the people who were there, it was a musician who just happened to also be an ambassador. And came to him and asked him about his playing and about his music and his talent. And he again lied and pretended as if he'd had some sort of formal training. And this person, you know, said, oh, well, you know, you should get more formal training. You should go to America, you know, and get a scholarship at one of the schools. And, you know, my father, coming from a small village, he hadn't even been to high school. He had no idea what this person was talking about. But somehow, you know, he was able to get the help to apply for a Fulbright scholarship and came to the United States on that. And then ended up getting a master's degree and 2 PhDs. You know, that is the road.
What I love the fact that's, you know, like, it's truly like a rose that grew from concrete, but it broke through the ceiling with grace. I mean, how beautiful is it? Like, you know, like playing a clarinet, how beautiful it is. Like, it's the most graceful, like, instrument out there, like, you know. And I found this, like, metaphorically beautiful, you know what I mean? It's like, you don't break through with violence, you break with grace. Man, like, that's it's like,
it's such a beautiful thing, because that is the truth, right? It's like a rose that grows from the concrete. Like, you have to break through with grace.
Exactly.
Petals aren't bruised.
Yeah, no,
You know,
that's
the petals are still
yeah,
beautiful. They're expanding and they're reaching for the sun. You know, they're reaching for this hope and this
right.
like idea that is bigger than them. And they don't realize that it's like, oh, this was impossible. You don't even know that it's impossible because you're just the rose trying to just live and shine. That's it.
That's a beautiful question. Look, that's the last question, and then I'm gonna let you go. For
Yeah.
all our guests, we have the same question: is this? If there was a wind that blows your sail, what would the name of the wind be?
Oh, well, this one feels easy for me. The wind would be Lael.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
and it's
Lael.
such a beautiful name. Such a
She
beautiful
is,
name.
yes. I mean, she is very much my reason for doing and for being. You know, I want her to know that everything is possible. You know, that even out of, as I said, you know, triumph or tragedy, that you can still move and love life, you know, and enjoy life. And that death does not always mean sadness. You know, that for us in our home, we're very much celebratory. You know, we celebrate the tragedies, we celebrate the triumphs. And I hope that that kind of example will allow her to see that while life isn't always beautiful, it certainly is not, but that you can find beauty in it. And so she certainly is the wind.
That's
The wind
awesome. I remember there, like, I still remember one picture that Peter like posted. Like, I think she was like less than 1 year old, and she's in front of a mirror in the bathroom.
Oh
And,
yeah.
yeah, and Peter is holding her, and it's like, I remember. Oh man, it was so fun. Anyway, look,
No.
you awesome. I don't have to tell you this. Thank you so much for your time. I know that it was like, I mean, I know that you must be busy. So go out there, inspire other people, and like keep doing what
Wonderful.
you're doing.
So wonderful. No, I so appreciate this. But you have to see Lael before we
Yeah,
go. So that,
absolutely.
hey, Tayo, do me a favor. Will you grab her for me? Yeah. She's in online school, but
That's
I
awesome.
want you at least to see her. You know, you can see Peter's kid.
Do you want me to stop recording?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I'm fine with it. Yeah, because you know, it's like she's a great combination of the two of us. You know.
I know perfectly. I mean, whenever I see the eyes,
Yes, her eyes, right? Her eyes are his eyes.
it's like Peter eyes. Absolutely.
Exactly. And I want her to see you, you know? She loves it because it's like every time, you know, I'm like, "Oh, here's daddy's friend." You know, she's like, "Oh," you know, she's because it's like such a mystery, right? It's like she loves it so much, and I'm just so grateful. And thank you again for asking me.
Oh, are you kidding me? I mean, come on. Like, this is like, it was an honor for
Oh,
me.
good. Here she comes. I know. Look, she's all.
Len, how are you? Oh my God, like,
I know, right?
those eyes.
Uncle
And it's like,
daddy's friend.
your daddy used to give me like huge pat on the shoulder and always like complain about the fact that I was crazy. And he used to tell me like, how crazy you are, man. You need a kid. You need a kid. So I remember when the first time like I had my first kid, he was really happy. And I saw you, I told your mom, I saw you like that small in front of a mirror. Your dad was holding you. Anyway, it's so beautiful to see.
I know. And you know, this one, because, you know, obviously remember that Peter was so proud of his Italian heritage.
Yeah, I already used to.
Okay, exactly. So we went to Rome 2 years ago, I think, was it? About 2 years ago. And she came back thinking she's Italian. So there you go. He's really Italian. So here you go. You have one of your countrymen right here.
Right, that's awesome. Hey, all the best.
Oh, thank you so much, Simone. So
awesome.
good.
And
This
like,
was awesome. And my best to you and to the family also.
Thank you so much, Len. Stay strong. Bye.
Okay.